Okay.
Wimpy,
I was going to do it.
will you describe to Angela sort of your approach to taking some of the excess revenue generated for the Ubuntu Mate project and how you pass it on to some other open source projects? Because I don't think she's heard that before.
Okay, so we receive donations from our awesome community and users, and we've got far more money coming in than we need to cover the costs of the project. So when there's a surplus, we identify other open source projects that we depend on or are making use of, and we send some of those donations back to those projects. And that hopefully keeps them motivated and keeps them covering their costs, and it helps generate some collaboration and contact and communication with the various projects that we reach out to in that way.
That's good PR for his project too.
So you pretty much fund the projects that you're most interested in?
To some extent. So this month we've given some money to TLP, which is an advanced power management utility for Linux, which is going to be integrated into the next release of Ubuntu Mate. Now, I've been using that for some years, and it really increases battery endurance on laptops and things. So I wanted to integrate that, and it started a dialogue with that developer. But we've also sponsored other individuals and projects. It's not like loads of money. I'm not going to make anyone rich overnight or anything, but it's a nice way to recognise their contributions, because as single application and utility developers, they probably don't generate much donations for their individual projects, but by using a distribution as a platform, we can be a bit more generous than you could be as an individual. So that's
we've been kicking around in-house sort of as we've transitioned more and more of our production over to Linux or open source tools. Now we start to kind of feel like we'd like to come up with a model where we can contribute some amount to the projects we depend on, and maybe even help encourage them to continue to support Linux, because some of those projects, their Linux support is a little tenuous. So it seems like there's a whole range of software, specifically around media production, that I've been sitting around and waiting for to get better for a really, really long time. And some of it's gotten a lot better, and some of it still hasn't. And so I'm starting to wonder if maybe there isn't a way we could start to move the dial there a little bit. So how do you just kind of personally choose where the money goes, or is there because that's the big thing I'm worried about, is if I did something like that, I feel like it would be constant scrutiny, constantly questioning how much and where I sent the money, and I would like to base it on, well, I feel like this is what we can afford to do, and this is how that project is important to us, or to media production in general, or open source in general, whatever, I feel like I'd like to have some freedom over it to sort of help encourage projects that make our content better, but I feel like it'd be constantly up against scrutiny. So how have you avoided that?
Well, at the moment, this is one of the few things that I've not actually gone to the Ubuntu Mate community and said, which projects do you think we should sponsor? I've actually made that decision for myself based on the projects that I feel are most important to Ubuntu Mate that aren't necessarily part of Ubuntu or Mate. So they've been quite diverse. I mean, I've actually sponsored one of the elementary projects a couple of months ago, and now have good relationships there. And I've still got plenty of ideas in the pipeline about what projects I would like to support through Ubuntu Mate over the next few months.
Yeah.
And when I start running out of ideas, then I'll start asking the community. And I think, there's obvious candidates. For example, we haven't sponsored Mozilla yet. We haven't sponsored LibreOffice yet. We're not going to make any significant contribution there, but we should recognise the part that they play in making up an operating system. So, they're clearly on the list and will get some recognition. But I'm sure the Ubuntu Mate community have got projects that are included in Ubuntu Mate they'd like to see receive some money, and when I start running out of ideas, I'll ask.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense. And that might be kind of an approach I would take too. I've been kicking it around for a while, trying to figure out what I'm most comfortable with and really willing to commit to.
I actually think the way Martin does it is the right way to do it. He he picks what he thinks is most appropriate. And I know that if someone sent him an email saying, "Hey Martin, I really think you should consider donating to these people," then I'm sure if it's not unreasonable, it will go on the list. But I don't think it's necessarily a good idea to put out a poll and say who should we give the money to, because that can cause resentment for people who were at the bottom of the list, and can cause people to game the system and try and force Martin to give money to someone he might not necessarily think is the most important or worthy recipient.
Good point.
But
Well, thank you for that vote of confidence.
well, in order to find out which projects are out there, you kind of like getting a not necessarily a polling, not to vote, but just to get the ideas.
I feel like if I did like one a month or something, I could probably do it for a year easily on my own, just the ones we depend on here for production. And I kind of feel like in some ways, like if they were commercial software projects, I would have paid for them many times over now. Like, geez, how could I even put a dollar amount on FFmpeg? I can't even. FFmpeg is worth more than any proprietary commercial piece of software we have from Adobe or Apple. And so I just can't even fathom, or really, in some ways, VLC is pretty freaking important too. So it's really weird. Like these open source projects couldn't do our job without them now. Now that we've, when we look to replace proprietary components with open source ones, when we made the switch because they were better choices, not just because they were the free and open choices. And so once you make that switch, it's kind of a mind f to think about how much money you'd actually be willing to spend on those things that you just get for free.
I'm inclined to agree with Martin, though, that if you pick out like the big ones like Mozilla and LibreOffice and others that you've listed, there's the possibility that you would be a drop in the ocean. I'm sure they're very grateful and thankful that you're showing your appreciation by giving them some hard-earned cash. But the flip side is, for all the money that you give to those really big ones, there's all these unsung heroes out there creating some tiny little thing that's a tiny cog in the whole mechanism of Jupiter Broadcasting that doesn't necessarily get the recognition. And I know you as a broadcaster are looking for content all the time, and if you find and discover those tiny little projects, and you chuck a few bucks their way and say, I really appreciate the work you're doing, it may well help motivate them to continue working on it, because you never know these tiny little projects how much time they've got and whether they're happy to carry on working on the project,
or if they're burning out or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Welcome to Linux Unplugged, your weekly Linux talk show that has its chat room full screen on your screen. My name is Chris.
And I'm Angela.
Hey there, Angela. I'm glad to have you here. Now I'm not sweating alone. I appreciate having somebody to sweat with during the show. I may or may not have pants on right now.
Yeah.
And you may or may not be in a tank top right now.
Yeah.
This is the summer edition of the Jupiter Broadcasting programming. It kind of reminds me when we used to broadcast out of the garage. We also were affected.
Yes.
At least here in the studio, we don't get crazy cold. We only get crazy hot.
Yeah.
So it only goes one direction. Well, coming up on today's episode of 96, holy smokes, episode 96 of the show, we got Matt coming on from the Fedora project. Matthew Miller will be joining us to talk about Fedora 22 and Fedora 23. Mark Shuttleworth was on stage today playing a Can You Name What It Is game. Yes, Ubuntu is now running on yet another crazy device. We'll be talking about that. Angela's here to give us an update on her switch to Linux, and she's got her top 4 things that she's run into and solved, or maybe has not solved since she's visited us last. And I'm going to say, one of them straight up, I think it's just one of the reasons why Arch isn't super great for new users, but she doesn't mind tackling it. We'll talk about that a little bit in the show. And then at the end, if we have some time, we got some great insights into why some of us are just maniac distro hoppers. I think we might finally have the answer, and we'll get some insights into all of that crazy distro hopping that we like to do. But first, before we do all of that, let's say hey to our virtual lug. Time-appropriate greetings, Mumble Room.
Yo.
Hello. Man, Popey is always on it. He's boom, right in there with it. That's nice. Okay, so I just wanted to commence with you guys what's going on with SourceForge. So since we had a chance to get together last time, it's also come out now that the Nmap project was taken over in the same way that GIMP for Windows was. Also, VLC, back in the day, Like, this didn't get a lot of attention, but back in the day, check this out. The founder of VLC sent an email to Ars Technica that said that the VLC project's account on SourceForge was taken over in 2012, which was the most downloaded project at the time. In fact, it's still one of the most top downloaded projects on SourceForge, even though it's not their primary hosting. They say, too, that when that happened, and then VLC moved to their own hosting infrastructure after that event, surprisingly, those new servers were DDoSed. But they don't know if it was related or not. So what's going on, Ange? If you're not familiar, SourceForge is a site that hosts a lot of open source projects, gives them mirrors for downloading. And, when you're writing free code, it's not like you have a bunch of extra money to have a bunch of mirrors. So this is a very handy service. And what they started doing is they take like the Windows installer for GIMP, and they'd package it up with a bunch of adware. And so when you download it, you get like the SourceForge version of GIMP that has ads it installs on your machines and all that kind of crap. And now we find out that they're doing it to other open source projects as well, like Nmap and VLC.
Wait, so SourceForge is grabbing people's open source projects, packaging them, loading them, and then distributing them? Why would people even use SourceForge if they're doing that?
Well, SourceForge has a lot of momentum.
Is it a distribution method for open source projects?
A lot of people go there to find software. A lot of old links on websites link back to SourceForge.
Why wouldn't they just use GitHub?
There's a lot of places. Well, GitHub's not so much for hosting the file, although people do that as well. There's a lot of other alternatives now.
It's old. That's why it's there. Right? I have to break in here.
SourceForge's management has changed.
Yeah,
SourceForge management changed, and then they decided to screw up the old trusty SourceForge that used to be good.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was no GitHub, and then GitHub came along and did the thing it does better than what SourceForge wanted to be, and then everybody moved off SourceForge, and then people at SourceForge feel like they need to get a lot of money. At least that's my perspective.
Yeah,
I'm just making that up, but it seems...
I don't need to get on the soapbox again, but what I don't like about it, and it probably seems pretty obvious to you, is it kind of, to the average consumer, gives open source projects a bad name. Like, if I tell you to go download VLC, and then you download, God, this is the worst case. When you, like, we've had this happen with family members because they just screw it up. Like, we'll tell them to go download VLC, and then they'll go Google VLC, and they'll download some adware version of VLC and get a ton of crap on their PC.
Or like bloatware, right? Isn't that what it's called?
Yeah. And that gives open source projects like VLC a bad name, just that kind of stuff.
Right.
So now when you go to a kind of a well-established distribution point for open source software, and they're distributing open source software that looks official with adware, it looks like it's the projects doing it. If you're sort of a casual average user. It's this huge disappointment. SourceForge is becoming another cnetsdownload.com, Elroy says, and I completely agree. Download.com did the same thing.
Let's come out with a new one.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think, Alex? Binary downloads? Tell me more.
Yes, I think SourceForge is still the best for binary downloads. There was a page that compared all alternatives, and for binary, GitHub just doesn't cut it.
Yeah, there is actually. The Mir network is nice, too, let's be honest. Free bandwidth. You can never really sneeze at that.
I posted the link.
Yes, thank you. From Rotten Corpse's blog.
Yeah, that's cool. I was just going to say, yeah.
All right. So I just would like to get the audience's sort of opinion on that. It's kind of a shame. It is kind of a shame, but...
What is AngersDownloads.com?
Oh, try it. Click it. What's the worst that could happen?
It's not a link,
come on.
I will copy it.
Oh, yeah. Come on. Let's hope it's something good. Come on. I want something good here. Let's see what we get. What is it?
Server not found.
I think it's wasted effort.
Turns out it was a wasted effort.
Ah, darn it. Go figure.
Way to get me all excited.
Yeah. Well, maybe by the end of the show you could have something there. All right, I wanted to read a bit of feedback we got into the show, and since we're going to be talking with Matthew Miller from Fedora, this is a great bit of feedback. This was Tehamalok's experience with GNOME Shell 3.16 on Wayland 1.8. He says, since Wayland 1.8 was just released, I've decided to give GNOME Shell and Wayland a go. I'm using it on an upgraded Arch. I've been impressed overall with the smoothness, like resizing and dragging windows around. However, there's still some problems that are unique to Wayland. Now, this is what we've all been wondering. What do I lose if I switch to this new display server on Linux? No copy and paste support between X-Wayland and native applications. No middle button paste.
Wait, with native apps you can't copy and paste? That seems...
Well, so you have apps that know they're in Wayland, and then you have these old X apps that are from the old display server that are running in compatibility mode. You can't paste between the new smart apps.
Oh, I see. Yeah. I see.
So a lot of important apps, though, are still running in this compatibility mode, like VLC, Chromium. Even though native versions exist, they're not packaged properly. X-Wayland applications are not clickable when placed on the second monitor. Evian's PDF viewer displays every document at 400%, and you can't change that. Double click doesn't work.
Okay, so as somebody that uses shortcuts on a mouse, is a middle button click a mouse thing?
So yeah, you can highlight in Linux. You can highlight text, and then and it automatically gets copied to the X clipboard. And if you use the middle button to click, it automatically pastes from the X clipboard. You never have to do Control C, Control V, nothing. Just highlight, click.
That's genius.
It's nice. It actually turns out, too, that they never actually, I don't think, intentionally put that feature in there. But he says overall, he's been pretty satisfied if you're okay with those problems. For my use case, it's not really, he says, not ready to be his daily driver, but it's pretty exciting it's gotten this far. Anybody else in the Mumble Room had a chance to play with Wayland as their main desktop for a little while?
All these people didn't know about it.
Well, you don't think so? No.
I have it on the Yola phone.
Oh, yeah, of course, yes. And I'm sure it works fine in that use case, right?
Yeah, quite good.
Yeah. I played with it briefly when I had, I think I played with it, I think it was with Fedora 21. I think I played with it when I had it on an Intel driver machine. And for like the 5 minutes I used it, I was pretty impressed how well it worked. Go ahead, Corky. There is one issue, porting.
Well, GNOME has partial Wayland support now, but for all other desktop environments and window managers, the developers have to go through a long process of porting it. And when some of them can't even get to GTK3, it's going to be quite a hard process to get to an incomplete display server.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why, there's going to be a lot of compatibility stuff around for a long time. I'm not in a huge rush, but it is good to see it moving right along. Okay, I want to just take a minute and read one more bit of feedback, and then we'll get to Matthew. So this one came in from Kidnap. What do you think, Ange? Kibnap?
I don't know.
Kabababnamnab. I'm going to go with that.
Yeah, that's great.
It's called DOCLI, a command line tool for DigitalOcean. He says, I'm a long-time listener of the show, all the JB shows, and I've been using DO for quite a time thanks to Jupiter Broadcasting. So I decided to try and make DOCLI, a command line utility for Linux, and probably OS X, for managing your DigitalOcean infrastructure. Now check this out, Anne. She made this tool.
Okay.
Be warned, he says it's in beta and he needs testers. So if you're feeling like you want to jump in, he'd love it. You can check out. He gives the command there to check it out. And so it's like here's an example. A command would be docli -- verbose -- no send then the command, and you can do like delete command safely. You could pass commands up to the droplet. He says it's using the DigitalOcean API wrapper library behind the scenes. And if you use Rust, feel free to give in and contribute. It's written in Rust. Keep up the great work on the last community. And he says it is in the AUR, if you're on Arch, called docli-bin or docli-git in the AUR if you want to install that. So this is a Linux command line utility that KB Knapp wrote to manage your DigitalOcean droplet using their API.
Nice.
And then submitted into the show. Isn't that really cool?
That is really cool.
And so it's called DOCLI. And in fact, while we're talking about that, why don't I mention DigitalOcean? And you know about DigitalOcean?
I sure do.
Oh, you do use DigitalOcean like on a daily basis now that you're on that Minecraft
yeah,
server.
Yeah.
And actually OwnCloud too.
Mm-hmm.
You're using OwnCloud all the time.
Yep.
Well, that's DigitalOcean's like our go-to now for when we need Linux infrastructure. We used to build out servers here in the garage. But it gets hot, for one, and that gets ridiculous because I end up spending all my time doing system administration instead of podcasting, which doesn't make any sense. DigitalOcean makes a ton of sense. It's simple cloud hosting dedicated to offering the most intuitive and easy way for you to spin up your own cloud server. And get ready for this, boss-level stuff here. If you use the promo code DO Unplugged, one word lowercase, DO Unplugged, you get a $10 credit.
That's like a 2-month.
It is.
Credit.
It is, because you can get started for $5 a month, and you can get going in under 55 seconds. And for $5 a month, you'll get 512 megabytes of RAM, a 20 gigabyte SSD, one CPU, and a terabyte of transfer.
You just spin it up when you need it. Spin it back down if you don't.
Yep.
Like, it's pretty simple.
They offer hourly pricing if you want to go that route. And then our $10 credit, DO Unplugged, really, really gets you somewhere. And they have data center locations in New York, San Francisco, Singapore, Amsterdam, and in London. Isn't that proper? And a brand new one in Germany as well. Which is,
yeah?
Yeah, it's
nice.
Super slick. It's got their fastest SSDs yet, which is already ridiculous at their SSDs throughout that whole business, which is brave. And also, back when they first launched it, a little cray. But now it's like you got to have it. And now like all the other service providers are like spending a ton of money trying to catch up. And meanwhile, DigitalOcean's like, that's cool. You can try to catch up. We're going to keep iterating. They just released a new version of their API a couple of weeks ago. They just rolled out support for Fedora 22 across the DigitalOcean infrastructure a couple of days ago. They've been working on FreeBSD 10.1 support. They got new tutorials out there. But the best thing about DigitalOcean is that sweet interface. DigitalOcean has a beautiful, intuitive intuitive control panel. Somehow they managed to make it easy and fast to use, crazy intuitive, but it's not watered down. The DigitalOcean control panel still allows you to do full-feature DNS management. You can create and destroy and snapshot and make templates out of your droplets. And of course, they have one-click installation and deployments for the entire stack. So you can do a LAMP stack from the Linux kernel all the way up to Apache, or you can say, I already have an existing Ubuntu machine. I want to deploy Ruby on Rails or GitLab, something like that. I love it. And if you use DO Unplugged, you'll get a $10 credit, and you can see why I rave about it so much. And don't forget about their API. Just like our emailer did, you can extend the functionality of their dashboard with the API and start automating things, automating deployment, testing, spinning up machines, destroying of machines. It gets cray. Also, they have some of the best tutorials on the web. I think you can go check for yourself. Go to DigitalOcean, click on that community section, and then be like, boom, in my face. They're also hiring right now for Linux admins and content editors. Go check out DigitalOcean. Go look at their community section. Right now, they just posted Apache content caching on Ubuntu 14.04, Node.js application production, and how to get started with FreeBSD 10.1 tutorials. It's good stuff. And they have professional editors and crap like that. I'm like, at first I was like, why are you guys doing all of this? Like, people can just go here and read these, and they're not even applicable to DigitalOcean. And then I realized they're playing the long game. Because the thing is, at $5 a month, that gets you in the door. Because how are you going to beat that value?
Right.
But then, like, for a lot of people, they can go to get these tutorials, and the value you get then out of that $5 because of these tutorials, they're unlocking stuff that, like, back when I did IT contracting, this was the secret of the business. This was the secret sauce.
Yep.
And I'm like, oh, that's why they're doing this. This is super smart. And then it really clicked with me when they started hiring multiple content editors and copyright editors and started paying people to submit tutorials. They're serious about this. And that completes the DigitalOcean picture. You've got those great SSDs, the great data center locations, the fantastic interface, Linux-based technology, KVM for the virtualization stack, and they're always current with CoreOS and Fedora, and they're keeping up with FreeBSD. They do a great job there, and then they wrap it all up with those fantastic tutorials. DigitalOcean.com. Use the promo code DO Unplugged when you check out, and a great, big, huge thank you to DigitalOcean for sponsoring Linux Unplugged. Man, it is hot in here. Wow, it is hot in here. Holy smokes. Holy smokes. Anyways, I wanted to welcome Matthew Miller to the show from the Fedora project. He heads the Fedora project up over there, at least so far. He had some stat.
Now.
Yeah. So Matthew, what's the stat for the average Fedora project lead? Isn't it something abysmal?
It's well, let's see. There's been only 8 or so it's hard to get.
There's been 8, data. And Fedora's been around for
in like 3 months.
No,
I'm just kidding.
No, but actually,
10 years.
8 and 10 years. But I got a good feeling about you. I think you're gonna make it for a while. So are you?
Thank you.
Are you doing okay? Are you exhausted from the big release? Have you caught your breath from Fedora 22?
Yeah, I think from Fedora 22, that seems like that was in the distant past at this point.
Really? Already, huh?
I'm a little exhausted. We had a big week last week. We had a release engineering FAD, which FAD is a Fedora activity day. And so we flew a bunch of people into, this one was held at Red Hat's Westford office, Westford is a distant suburb of Boston. So we flew a bunch of people in, and there was a bunch of hacking, and that actually went on all weekend. But I ran away because that was a big, cool, busy thing. But we're kind of busy working on infrastructure and stuff for Fedora 23 now because 6-month cycle comes quick.
Yeah, it does. So when you say infrastructure, what kind of things are being worked on at this point in this point of the release cycle already?
Yeah, so a lot of this stuff is the build systems that we make the release with, and so that pretty much has to be in place by the alpha in order for it to really work. And actually, one of the things we have right now is that it's actually hard to make any changes after the alpha, which again, that's like basically halfway into the 6 months. And so last 6 months, if we want to make a Vagrant image all of a sudden because we decided at last minute that that's a high priority, it's hard to add those things on. And with the world changing so quickly, there's always last minute things to add on. So part of the idea is to make it more flexible so we can hopefully have some more last minute changes, getting more towards that continuous delivery of the release engineering tools so that we can kind of adjust as we need. And then there's just a lot of, technical debt and cleanup as all 10-year-old projects have.
Sure. So 22 is out. Is there anything when you're going into 23 now that you're like, oh, we definitely didn't hit the right note on this point in 22, and we want to make sure we get this note right in 23? Is there anything that stands out for you? Because to me, 22 on the outside seems like a pretty great release.
Yeah, no, I think it is a really great release. I think it's a lot of polish over Fedora 21, which was also a great release. So it's nice to have that increasing polish. And so I think so far we're seeing a lot of that kind of thing. There's a new feature for secure DNSSEC that's being worked on right now, which I think is pretty cool. I think that in addition, that actually includes having a local resolver on your system, which we actually didn't have before. And I'm spoiled because I worked for universities and had local
isn't that nice? It makes a big difference.
High quality and fast. But yeah, like, I installed this test feature and realized, like browsing the web at a coffee shop was like 100 times faster.
So much faster over Wi-Fi.
It's like, wow, I wish I would have done that years ago. So that's hopefully going to be default in Fedora 23. So that's a nice workstation feature there.
Cool. I've also heard just today, I think I read that there's going to be support for firmware updates on new Uefi machines from within Fedora. Can you talk about that?
I think that covers about my knowledge of it.
Okay.
I know. I talked a little bit to Peter Jones, who's working on that. But yeah, that's basically so you don't have to go into some other operating system or some weird boot to update your firmware.
Yeah.
It's kind of.
And I just think, as that becomes more prominent, that's gonna be really nice. Now, Matt, one thing I had you on here before and I asked you about, and I was hoping to see more in 22, and I'm wondering what your thoughts are on 23. Is we see these when we go to conferences and events, and you must see it too when you travel. Just these conferences and events, these Linux conference and events are awash in MacBooks. Like it's maybe sometimes like depending on the venue, 70% of the machines there, 80% of the machines there are MacBooks at Linux events. And so I have been just so desperate for a distribution to come along and say, we are really going to tackle the MacBook problem and handle its, SMC firmware, its weird boot system setup. And we're really going to try to, understand this and make it easy for Mac users to have an open source workstation they can load on their premium hardware. Is this an area at all you guys are continuing to look at, and any discussion there?
Yeah, I mean, so the Mac hardware itself is kind of hard because it's not like Apple wants to bend over backwards to work with us on that kind of thing.
Right.
They're not that their engineers are bad people or anything, just that it's not their company priority.
It's not a priority, yeah.
They certainly don't care about other operating systems running on their hardware. They're kind of a unified system. And so we often have problems with, wireless drivers and things like that.
And the webcam and whatnot.
Out of the box.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that's going to continue to be a challenge. We're going to continue to work on it because we'd love for it to work on the Mac hardware. I think we also have some other work going on to get it running on some of the nice, Ultrabook kind of non-Mac hardware that looks and feels as nice as that. I think traditionally Red Hat has given Lenovo laptops to all their employees, so Lenovo has been the safe laptop for Fedora and a lot of Linux distributions because of that.
Yep.
And I think we're, and not that, abandoning Lenovo or anything, or that we actually had a formal commitment to that, but I think we're branching out in some of the shinier laptops as well. I know one of the desktop people was showing me one of these Toshiba laptops that splits in two. So you can pull the tablet off, and they had Fedora working on that.
Yeah, that's pretty
cool. It's kind of weird. You leave the keyboard behind. And
Yeah, I've seen that. Okay, so let's shift gears back to Fedora and the transition. That's one of the big transitions that's been going on now for, 2 releases? Or more, really? But really, the last 2 releases, I feel like it came to the surface was the transition from Yum to DNF. And for the most part, it's been pretty clean. But I guess there's still some cleanup to do. Like perhaps GNOME software is still using Yum on the back end, and so that can sometimes cause problems. How's that transition going?
So actually there's a thing called Hockey, or I'm not really sure how you pronounce it. There's a library underneath it, and both GNOME software and DNF are using it, but they're using it differently. And then Yum uses its own thing. So right now you could potentially have 3 different things going on at once. So there's that will hopefully become more unified I don't know if that's proposed for 23, but in the future, so it'll all be in one place. Yeah, so right now you can easily download all the repository metadata 3 times if you're using all those things, and that's kind of wasteful, let alone annoying.
So how do I know as an end user that DNF is going to be it now for a while? Because I feel like Yum just finally kind of got squared away. So how do I know as an end user it's safe to invest in I feel like when Linux distributions sort of change out these things, as an end user, I sometimes am left going, now I feel like these core components that I thought were like temples of my distribution are interchangeable, and I'm not sure. I'm so sure I want to get really super connected to this new component. Is DNF here for the long haul, or could you see it being replaced in a couple of years?
That's open source and software in general for you, right? Something comes along even better for that, then that we will definitely look at it.
Yeah.
I think that the team working on it at Red Hat is pretty committed to this, and they really lobbied to have it named something other than Yum 4, which was kind of what I think in Fedora a lot of us were hoping that that's what it would go to, and it really is like it's. For the basic things of like installing software, upgrades, those kind of things, it's really like drop-in compatible. You don't have to think about it, but it behaves a little differently because it uses a different like mathematical approach for dependency solving, which means that your results might not be exactly the same. And they were worried that that would be more confusing to people if they didn't also emphasize that there was a change with the name change.
Yeah.
So they won out on that one. So that's why we've got a new name. But that team is pretty committed to this being the future for that. And one of the things is that it is designed with sort of a modular architecture and a clean code base with a defined API and all these kind of modern software engineering ideas that Yum kind of grew up over the years into what it was. So there's a lot of, like you said, there's a lot of improvements in all of that, but there's also a lot of cruft, and it's getting harder for the developers to manage. So
well, that's actually pretty old, isn't it? Yeah, I guess if it comes from Yellow Dog Linux, which isn't even around anymore, and PowerPC hardware isn't even that prominent anymore. So, yeah, it has been. It served a good purpose for a good long time, really. So that's pretty understandable. I like one of the things I like about Fedora is that it's a great place to sort of experience one of the latest versions of GNOME. And GNOME 3.16 is no exception. It looks great under Fedora. And I've noticed the Fedora project is making really super minor tweaks to the default. It's pretty much a default GNOME experience. But there's a couple things you guys change that nobody else does. One thing, Elementary OS does it, but they're not GNOME. They're not using GNOME 3. Is if you have a command in the terminal that completes and the terminal isn't active anymore, you've integrated it with the GNOME notification system to give you a notification that, hey, the command on your terminal that you're no longer watching has completed and you can return to your terminal now. Nobody else does that, and that's not a big deal. But I thought it was interesting. There's a specific Fedora tweak you're making. There's also discussions about Fedora willing to make tweaks to make the GNOME terminal transparent when it's not a default in GNOME 3. And there's another small one, like you have an extension that overlays a opaque Fedora logo over the background. Small little tweaks to the GNOME desktop. Matthew, as you guys go forward, do you see Fedora continuing on the workstation spin or ring or whatever you want to call it to make tweaks to GNOME, or is it pretty much going to stay stock? Because I kind of like where you guys are going with some of this stuff.
Yeah, so I think we do really keep following the upstream with a lot of our software is one of our main ways we work in Fedora. So we're going to keep to that as much as we can. But we also wanted it to kind of feel like it had a unique Fedora identity to it. That's the logo is part of that, and we might do some other kind of visual things as we go forward that will be maybe more subtle, but more both more subtle and like less, there's an F in your face, but also just different identity kind of theming kind of things might happen. But then some of the other things like the notifications are kind of come from our, the target audience for the Fedora workstation is we're trying to make it hit that people using Macs at the conference, sort of a software developer using a Mac is kind of one of the users we have it as a primary target for this. And so that was one of the things we got feedback about. That would be a little thing we could change that people would like. And so we're probably going to look at doing more and more of those things, especially as they hit somewhere on the wiki. There's a target audience for Fedora Workstation. You can look at and so I don't have it in front of me, but it's basically we're kind of focusing that feedback on the software development target and all kinds of software developers, from independent to big enterprise to students.
I like it.
That's sort of a way to focus where we're going, because when you try to make it be all things to all people, then somebody says, well, that's not me, and then you say, well, you're not all people, and it gets to be a whole what were we doing this for?
Who's this and who's that? But when I was using it, distinctly the impression I got was, this is the beginning of a small tweak you're making for a target audience, and that was essentially the impression I got. So it wasn't too much. And the other thing is, as somebody who reviews a lot of distributions, I install a lot of GNOME desktops, and having super, super small things that give it a feeling that this is something unique I'm getting by installing Fedora. Because what I don't like doing is installing Fedora and being like, okay, well, I've got what I had with Antergos 4 weeks ago. Right? I like when I install Fedora, I like going, I only got this because I installed Fedora. That's the only way I could have got this. Not that it's proprietary or it's exclusive, but it's just a nice touch that somebody went in and did that no other desktop environment no other desktop distribution is doing. And so it makes it something kind of unique, and it feels like extra thought went into it, even though it's something small. And so you guys build on top of that. I enjoy it a lot.
Yeah, and that's kind of also kind of a visual indicator of something we feel is actually going on throughout the whole stack, where you can see the GNOME desktop on the top, and it might look like another GNOME desktop anywhere else. But we also, even our desktop team kind of works, all the way down to the kernel level to try and make everything integrated together into one nice distribution.
Yeah,
and
you can feel it.
Kind of want to remind
you.
To remind you, we put in all this work into making this a whole integrated experience, and you can't just necessarily get that somewhere else because it won't be Fedora underneath.
So before we run, I'm looking at the release schedule right here for Fedora 23, and let's see, if everything goes as planned, and sometimes it doesn't happen, it looks like October 27th. Ooh, right by Halloween, a Halloween edition of Fedora.
I don't know if you remember the old Red Hat Linux days, but some of the first releases of Red Hat Linux were Mother's Day and Halloween. And so those were the actual, their release names. They actually had some secret code name, but that was that's what they were known as.
Yeah.
And so we're, with Fedora, kind of following that tradition and actually kind of want to get back to Mother's Day and Halloween releases as a regular cadence.
That's awesome.
That can help people follow that.
I love it. It's whimsical in a way too.
Well, and the next Fad Day should be Fedora Activity Promotion.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, promotion. Feb. Matthew, is there anything else? Feb.
No comment on that one.
Feb.
We do have a Fedora community-based Fedora marketing. Not touching that joke with the 10-foot pole.
That's fine. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, we do have community-based Fedora marketing team that anybody can join and take part in and help us promote what we're working on. So you're very welcome and invited to join us with that.
Awfully punny with the touching and pulls.
You are good with that. So Fedora 23, anything else, Matthew, you want to touch on before we wrap up?
I think one of the things we're kind of working on an initiative to, you probably have seen CoreOS and Ubuntu Snappy and those kind of things. And we've been talking about Fedora Rings for a while, kind of sort of seeing this as sort of a general sense in the way operating systems are going, but we're also kind of edging slowly into it. I think we're going to try and prototype some ideas around a modular OS that is kind of built up out of these different components, because that seems like it's kind of the way of the future and it's what a lot of developers want. And I think that it'll be a way that hopefully we can address some of this long-term support idea, which we probably are really never going to do in Fedora because that doesn't fit our charter and sort of the way it works. It kind of there's a general problem in operating systems of everybody wanting it to move fast and everybody wanting it to move slow both at the same time, but nobody agreeing on which part they want to be which. And so having the modular operating system lets us and our users make different decisions there. So we might be able to, for example, have some language API, Python stack, which we say, okay, Fedora release is retiring, but Django, for example, the web stack, it's going to be the same API for 3 releases here, or there'll be a version of the same API for 3 releases. So you can upgrade underneath it and keep your app running.
Yeah. Yes.
That kind of thing. So we're exploring
good.
Possibilities there.
Good.
So
well, that'll be great. Do you think we'll start to see
that in Fedora?
Okay.
We'll see the start of that in Fedora 23, but it's not going to be anything that's not going to be a release artifact. But if you're following the development, you'll see some things along those lines.
That sounds like a hint to keep our eyes peeled for further development there. Cool, Matthew.
Yes, exactly.
Well, let's chat again soon. Maybe you can give us an update on that initiative and all the other goodness that's going on over there. You're always welcome to join us. Now that you got Mumble built for Fedora, you have no excuse.
Cool, yeah. And I have to figure out why it's not in the official repository. Somebody built it before and they got retired.
We might get more Fedora users in here if it gets fixed. All right, Matthew, well, you are welcome to hang out if you'd like. We're going to move in and to get an update from Ange on her transition to Linux, which I've been pretty excited to watch. And we'll be reporting on it here in just a moment. But first, I want to tell you about our great friends over on Ting. That's right. Go to linux.ting.com. So that way you get to put Linux in your URL bar, in your URL bar. In Uncle Earl's bar, you can put linux.ting.com. But more importantly, right now until the end of the month, $50 free conservice credit or $50 off your first device.
Yep, that's amazing.
That's so great because Tings only pay for what you use, and so $50 is gonna pay. I've got 3 phones, and I'm not paying $50 a month for 3 phones. So come on, it was like $47 last month. Yeah.
Wow.
I know. Isn't that great?
Yes.
It's $6 a month for the line, and then it's just my usage on top of that. Ting just takes my minutes, my messages, and my megabytes, and they add them all up. And so, like, Ange and I, we used to have a plan of, like, what was or I don't want to say the name of the company because they're a bunch of jerks, but...
Starts with an A.
What was our monthly plan from them?
174.
Oh, I thought it was less than that. $174 a month, and that's for 2 phones. Anyways,
yeah, so it's ridiculous.
You can go to Ting. You go to linux.ting.com. You click that savings calculator. Find out how much you would save. You put your usage in there and find out. Also, just part of the service: hotspot, tethering, mobile, caller ID, all that stuff. You just check the box. You got it. No hold customer service. No hold customer service. No hold customer service. You call them at 1-855-TING-FTW anytime between 8 a.m. or 8 p.m. and a real human being answers the phone. I love it. And also check out their blog. They've got great tips up there. Like here's one they just posted today: a Ting tip for Android. How to return paid apps on Google Play.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That sounds really helpful, actually, because I never try to return digital things.
And then when you finally want to do it, you're really pissed off. You just want to know how to do it because you got all worked up. Yeah. So they got a tip on how to do that. Also, check out the Ting shopping site. First, make sure you go to linux.ting.com so that way your discount is applied. You can get a $9 Ting SIM card. They have GSM and CDMA. So if you just have something that has a GSM slot and you can add Ting service to that thing, it's great for like internet of service types things. Yes, I said it. It's good for like security cameras. It's great for all kinds of devices. It's great for 2 super tiny small phones like Noah has.
And here's the thing. After that $9, you still have 41.
Yeah, I know, right? I know. And check this out. I picked this phone out because I just think this is such a great one. The OnePlus One is now available for $250, unlocked. You own it from Ting. Only pay for what you use, no contract. And by the way, if you are in a contract right now, Ting has an early termination relief program. You switch over, you get to pick from a CDMA or a GSM network. You get a dashboard that allows you to manage your device and your phone like you've never experienced before. And this is great if you have multiple devices or a single device, and you're going to get no-hold customer service. And you get to support the Linux Unplugged podcast. Linux.ting.com. Go check out Ting and see why they truly are mobile that makes sense, and see why you can have a much better mobile experience. And you also get to help put pressure on the big duopoly to change the way they do business. Linux.ting.com. And a big thank you to Ting for sponsoring the Linux Unplugged program. All right, Andrews, let's talk about your switch over to Linux. And before the show, we came up with a couple of items that have been contention points for you so far.
Yep.
And number one, which is not going to be a surprise to anybody in the mumble room. I know you guys are not going to be surprised at all. Nobody listening is going to be surprised by this. But Angela decided to take it upon herself to install some updates. You know, I watched to make sure it went fine because she was a little nervous because there's like a crap ton of updates, so it's pretty understandable.
It always is. Every time I open the laptop, it has anywhere between 20 and 100
But I kind of
updates.
explained why, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's all the programs.
Yeah,
on the
it makes
computer.
sense.
Yeah. And you like getting all of them updated.
Yes.
So one thing, though, is some of them come from the AUR, or the Arch User Repository.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the things you noticed, I noticed in the notes here, is sometimes these programs prompt you like 3 or 4 times for stuff.
Yeah,
so
and
you have
they're
to babysit
not,
it.
and they're not logical, or well, they might be logical questions, but for me, they make no sense. Like,
do you want to edit the package build?
Yeah, like I don't know.
Do you want to continue building?
I do want the update. If I say no, will it not update? Right. Like I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
And there was one where you were like, no, you say no to that, and I'm like, no. Now I thought it was going to be yes.
Before you get crazy, the only thing she's really got coming from the AUR is Google Chrome, so that way her Netflix works, and like the EvoPop GTK theme. It's not like a bunch of stuff.
Yeah,
but it does get updated. And that's but do you think are you willing, like, is that like, now that you know how to answer that, is that okay? Like if we did it like a couple more times, you feel like you'd be fine with it?
I think I would need to either write down the questions and the answers, which I know is just yes or no's, or like even just the sequence, yes, no, yes, no.
No, yes, I think
yeah. Because like I said, what was logical to me was not the correct answer, so. Yeah. When we went through it.
Yeah. And so for the most part, I've been doing the updates for her, but we decided to let her try it just to see how it goes so we could report back on the show. Mm-hmm. And usually the way we do it now is I update one of my machines first.
Yeah, that is I do wait. Yeah. To do the updates because he could warn me if there shouldn't be an update.
Yeah. So that is definitely if you install things for the user from the AUR. Yeah. Awesome. Now we do have some good news though.
Okay.
You have something that is improved from the Mac when switching to Linux. It's better under Linux, and it's something that Mac Office didn't do very well for you that now is no longer an issue when you're using Office under Linux.
Yeah, and I can't figure out exactly why, but basically it might just be because the Mac Office is like a really old version. I think it's 2011.
Yeah,
maybe?
they haven't updated it for like 200 years.
Yeah,
it's so ridiculous, and they still charge like $2 million for it. These are all rough estimations.
Well, so I've always had an issue with the formula bar on my Mac.
Like where you go to edit, like in Excel.
Like
and
if I want to go, if I click on a cell and I want to start a formula, normally you could just hit equals, right? But if I already have a formula there and I just want to copy it so I can paste it into another cell, I cannot get the formula bar to display at the top, to display the formula. And I've messed around with the, where the toolbar is, but it will not, for the lack of a better word, it will not snap into place. And there's just something really weird about it.
The UI is super weird about it.
I end up having to work around formulas all the time. And the other thing is that if I do hit equals and I want to include cells around that cell in the formula, it makes a temporary pop-up and it covers up the cells around it. So I can't see them.
Another thing I've noticed on your list.
Well, wait, hold on. So, but I do not have that issue.
That's what I was going to say.
Now. Yeah.
So now you've been using Office 365, and other than it's a little cramped in the web browser, you find.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Having it on a bigger monitor, it's kind of hard to work on just the laptop screen. But
there's
having
so
a bigger
much
monitor
UI on Office 365 that it like puts the actual spreadsheet like halfway down the page.
Yeah.
Or more.
It's like half tools and toolbars and half.
The ribbon UI is so frickin' big
that
it takes up so much of the screen, but it's compatible with your spreadsheets. You didn't have to save them out.
All the formatting, all the colors, the color highlighting, the bolding.
How do you feel about the way you're launching it right now? You have the so I gave you an Excel icon, but it's like browser and browser. Is that
that doesn't bother me?
No.
Good. No, as long as, if it took a really long time, like remember how Mac Office was running really slow for me on my previous Mac? Yeah. If it got like that, then it would be, but it's pretty seamless.
So I never tried Calligra, Heaven's Revenge is asking, because we got to Office 365 and it's been working for you. And the reason why I had decided I liked it is because it kind of gives us a fail-safe if you decide to move back at some point. I
had originally tried LibreOffice.
Yeah, that didn't work.
And it partially didn't work because of my spreadsheets were saved as .xlsx. So and I don't want to go through and have to resave everything if the Office 365 works.
Yeah, and like Kevin said, I already did spend the money. So I bought you a year subscription just to try it out.
Who did?
I did. Yeah, no, it's only like $9 a month, but yeah, I know it's a full
auto renew.
I don't know.
Let's cancel that card. We have so many subscriptions.
We don't need to go into it. That's just the way welcome to the new world.
No,
it's the cloud, baby.
The new world of broke.
I know.
Jeez.
Now we have to talk about a travesty.
Okay.
A absolute. I had to watch a train wreck in front of my eyes. I stepped away. I had to cuddle myself to get over this.
He's holding the notes, so I have no idea what he's talking about. Remind me, please.
You don't remember me shaking?
No. What was it?
Well, at one point, you said, Chris, I've got to have icons on my desktop.
Oh, yeah. Right.
And so I was like, all right, honey. Hit the meta key and type in tweak.
Yep.
And then you brought it up and went to the desktop section.
Guess who knows about tweak now?
Yeah, GNOME tweak has been found by Angela, and she turned on desktop icons.
Yep. I just prefer it. The thing is, with my photos, I prefer, as opposed to going through the directory, right? Is that the file directory?
Yeah, your home folder or whatever.
Yeah, as opposed to going through there. I just want to throw it on my desktop because you know what? Browsers invented drag and drop for a reason.
Wow.
That's what I'm saying. So I use social media enough that
you want to drag and drop.
Need the drag and drop
for social media.
Yeah.
Because you're dragging from your photo program to your desktop, from your desktop to your browser.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's fine.
Yeah,
that's a flow, man. That's a flow.
There's some things.
I'll give it to you. It's a workflow.
Yeah, it is a workflow.
Yeah.
It is because, I have 80,000 pictures.
Yeah.
And well,
and one desktop.
yeah. Well, they're just there temporarily. See, that was one of the things that Noah worked on. Is he made sure that,
and by temporary you mean
he made sure
once
that
you get a new computer.
He got me. no, shush. He got me Shotwell.
Yeah.
Because it supports drag and drop without removing the picture from the library, which is what happened to me when I switched to Windows back in 2005.
Yes.
And was using Picasa. And that was So.
All right. Well, so that's Angela's update on her transition to Linux so far. And you're liking the Lenovo still too?
Yeah.
Yeah, you like that hardware.
Yep.
What do you think, Mumble Room? How are we doing so far? Any tips or advice or notes for Angela to take home? Oh, look at that. A room full of critics has no criticism so far. I thought for sure we'd get some crap for the Office 365 thing. That's good.
Nope.
That's good.
I tried getting it to work in Wine, and then I tried getting it to work in Play, and my attention span just stopped.
Yeah, I know,
So,
right? And then you realize,
there you go.
geez, I am trying so hard to get Microsoft Office working. Like, it starts to eat at you a little bit.
You know, I used Abbey Word back
Yeah, you did.
in 2001.
Yeah, you used it way back in the day.
Yeah.
And Numeric.
Yeah, I didn't remember that.
Numeric is what you used for your spreadsheets back in the day.
Okay.
Yeah. I've been pretty excited to see it happen, although part of me was hoping the whole thing would blow up and then we'd have a great Lenovo around to play with. But that's fine. No, actually, I'm really glad. Now I think our next step for you, and this is the one I've been dreading, is I want to tackle your dual monitor. But the reason why I've been dreading it
I know.
is I think we got to get a series of adapters because the Lenovo is mini HDMI out. And that's the only thing it does is or micro HDMI. It's the teensy tiny HDMI that's for smartphones.
Mm-hmm.
On your that's the display out.
Wow.
And then that has to go to I don't know what your monitor is, DVI or DisplayPort or
I can't remember.
Yeah, I think it's DisplayPort. So, but I think that's the next step so that way you don't have to have such crunched up spreadsheets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So maybe we'll report back on that
thankfully
soon.
my workflow I have just a couple spreadsheets that I maintain, bills and nanny, mainly.
Mm-hmm.
And then everything else is in GDocs. So are already online.
So you do a lot of Google Docs too, huh?
I do for Jupiter Broadcasting.
Well, you got a good mix of stuff, don't you?
I do. Yeah, I am very diverse.
You're
diversified.
You are diversificated, as they say.
I think so.
Well, I guess that makes the transition to different operating systems a little easier if it's all at least online.
Mm-hmm.
Something. All right. So Mark Shuttleworth was on stage. I think. Let me see. Do I have a date on this? I think it was today. Or not. It was a while ago. I'm not sure. But I just found this great video of Mark talking about, and just Ubuntu is running on so many things today. And wasn't Matthew just talking about that, about having a modular operating system and how there's all these kind of different demands for it. Well, Ubuntu Snappy just landed on something else that could be actually pretty cool, especially for you sysadmins. So I'll play the video. It's kind of a funny video because Mark tries to get the guy to guess what it is. And the guy has the hardest time guessing. It's so obvious, too. So stay tuned for that. But first, I'll tell you about our buddies over at Linux Academy. And you know what I love about Linux Academy?
Everything.
Well, that's true. That's true. I know what I love about Linux Academy is they stole my great idea. They really did. I think if we were going to redo Jupiter Broadcasting today, this is the direction I would have gone. And I say that because I look at this and I go, They kind of did what we did. You get guys together that are super passionate about Linux and open source. The real enthusiasts, the people that follow this stuff as a part of their passion. You work on it during your day job, then you go home and you work on it and you read about it during the weekends and you talk about it with your friends online and you argue about it in chat rooms.
Hobby turned life.
Yeah, that's these guys. And they went out and they created the Linux Academy platform. They got developers and educators together to create something they're truly passionate about. And I love that because that sets them apart. That means the content they produce is genuine. It's from real people who are passionate about this stuff, just like the Jupiter Broadcasting Network.
And it's updated.
And they follow the
That
trends,
way.
too, because they're following this stuff constantly. Yes,
Right.
very much. And they also get that Linux users have specific requirements that some of the average generalized education sites that cover everything from kitchen sinks to Adobe After Effects don't care about. Like, for example, over at Linux Academy, you get 7+ Linux distributions to choose from. They automatically adjust the courseware to those distributions. And I think this is super smart, is they throw in virtual machines that match the courseware with that. And those virtual machines match the distribution you chose for the courseware. And of course, that's the kind of thing Linux users care about. run. Of course they're going to give you a remote SSH login. Of course they're going to do that. They get you. They also have launched new courseware all the time, like new Red Hat certified courses that are great if you're going to go get your Red Hat certifications. They got nuggets to help you deep dive on a single topic. You can get in and out in a couple of hours if you need. And anything really from 2 minutes to 60 minutes. It's great types of content that really help you take it up to the next level. Instructor help is always available. They have really good AWS courses out there, some of the best in the business. In fact, they were awarded for some of their AWS content. And I also think you got to go, if you've been a member now for a while, you got to at least get a little interest in their Founders Club. It's kind of like, what we can offer for patrons. They have Founders Club where they get to vote on new content, get a beta access to things, help troubleshoot anything that you find in the courseware through that Founders Club. It's a great way, if you're really passionate about Linux Academy, to help them take it up a little bit to the next level. They're launching new courseware all the time, so do this. And we have a great discount if you do this. Go to linuxacademy.com/unplugged. You'll get our 33% discount when you go to linuxacademy.com/unplugged. Try them out for a little while. Try out some of the courseware. Take a few different courses. The self-paced labs. Select your availability for how much coursework you have, and they'll set up a courseware based around your availability. It's really, really good stuff. linuxacademy.com/unplugged. Get our 33% discount. And a big thank you to Linux Academy for sponsoring the Linux Unplugged program. You ready to see this video?
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe Popey might already have seen this. Popey, he's hooked in over there at the Canonical HQ. But this is Mark Shuttleworth up on stage, and he's introducing a new device, a new category device that runs Ubuntu Snappy, and he wants to see if this guy can figure it out.
You're just going to tell us what you see.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
You ready?
Yeah.
All right, let's go.
I can tell you what it is by the sound of it. I can tell what it is by the sound of it. Doesn't that sound like our closet?
Come around.
Yes.
Come around. Look from this side. You have to look from every angle.
The guy's checking it out. He's getting up close.
I'm guessing, like a blade server.
A blade server, he says.
Like a blade server.
Yes.
With all of these port thingies in the front.
Yeah, with all these ports, really?
Okay. So.
Anybody want to help him out? A switch? A switch. What do you think?
Switch. Okay.
You think it's a switch?
Okay.
Okay, look closer.
Okay. Yes, it's a switch.
With a lot of connection there.
Yes.
I mean, the port.
It's a switch. So it's sort of a trick question.
Not really.
But you did exactly the right thing. It's a switch, right? Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And he's exactly right. He's exactly right. It is a switch. And to prove it, here is the software running on that switch, right? It's a switch with switch control software. Except the switch is actually running the new version of Ubuntu called Snappy Ubuntu Core. And it's not just running switch control software. It's also running this. It's running something from Midakura, which is a software-defined networking solution.
So there you go, quite a package. You got a switch that runs Ubuntu with all of the benefits and features thereof, a full-fledged operating system with management GUIs and things like that. And also, Mark Shuttleworth talked about on all other kinds of devices. We've seen fridges. What do you think, Ange? You're going to have Linux on everything in the house one day, everything from your fridge to the hardware that runs the house.
I think they could have used a quieter device.
Yeah, it was pretty annoying, wasn't it?
Yeah. It does sound exactly like our closet, which I would also like to be replaced sometime soon.
Yes, I know you would. Yes, thank you, honey. I know. Guys, any thoughts on Canonical's efforts on the Internet of Things and these embedded devices? You think this is going to be the next big frontier for them? Nothing. Hold on. Let me get the right. Hold on. Let me get the. I got it here. Hold on. I know what I need. There we go. Nobody has any comments on the story? All right, we'll move on then. Yeah, it's basically Noah's house. Exactly, Miker. Exactly. That's what Miker says in the chat room. He says basically it's Noah's house. We have PF Sense and a Switch in our closet. Yeah. I think it's a fascinating move. I love it. I would love the idea of everything running on Ubuntu. And like if you could have a network, just to picture it. Your servers, your desktops, your switches, your routers. Could be a disaster, but the idea seems fascinating to me. And so Canonical has a whole page up about all of this over on their site. You can go find it. I have it linked in the show notes if you guys want to read more. They talk about critical infrastructure devices. They even talk about robots on the page. and appliances like door locks and whatnot, and drones too.
Cool.
Yeah, the whole range of stuff. Go check it out. I would cry. Wimpy, you think is useful for home automation and routers like Ubuntu Snappy on like these Linksys type devices?
Not necessarily. Well, it probably is suitable for home automation, but I'm more thinking about the sort of consumer grade wireless routers and broadband routers that once they go out the door, they get updates for a few months and then never again. And Snappy Core does provide a mechanism of patching the underlying OS without breaking, the whole system. So it will be interesting to see if it gets adopted by the likes of TP-Link and organisations like that as the basis for their consumer products.
Is TP-Link and Linksys' problem been that the operating system is hard to update, or has it just been that the vendor lacks the will to do it? Like, it's just not their business priority.
Yeah, that's true, but Snappy Core removes some of that complexity because the base operating system is taken care of for you by Canonical.
Fair point. I would love to see that work out. I think that's a major problem we have with all of these devices connected. And we've talked about this on last week's episode of TechSnap a little bit, is that we're pushing out all these devices that run operating systems, and we still haven't figured out the last round, like all these routers and all that things that have so many vulnerabilities that we've talked a lot about in TechSnap. I don't have much more. We have a thread. I think I'll keep it for the post show. Matthew, thanks for joining us on Unplugged today. It was good to have you here. I'll have a link to the Fedora project and your page, so folks can find that. Anywhere else you want to send people to?
Getfedora.org, is that what you are linking to? There?
Yes. No, I will link to that as well. Getfedora.org. Yes, of course. Thank you, sir.
Sort of the download brochure page. If you're, old school familiar with Fedora, it's probably not where you want to land. But if for new users and just kind of like showing somebody what's available and what you can start with, that's kind of the place to go. And it's where you go to download it, of course.
Yeah, excellent. I love it. I will add that to our show notes. Episode 96 is in the can. If you have any comments, go to linuxactionshow.reddit.com. There'll be a feedback thread in there. And you can also join us next Tuesday at 2 p.m. Pacific. Go to jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar to get that converted to your local time. Ange, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, no problem.
Do you want to plug anything? Like Jupiter Signal, at Jupiter Signal on Twitter?
Yes, but also Women's Tech Radio with Shannon tomorrow.
Shannon Morris, yeah. Snubs will be on Women's Tech Radio tomorrow.
It'll be out in the morning, yep.
Check that out at jupiterbroadcasting.com. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
All right, everybody, thanks so much for tuning this week's episode of Linux Unplugged. See you right back here next
Cool.
Tuesday.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, sir.
Right.
All right, we're all done. We're all out. Good show. Thank you, guys. Thanks again, Matt. That was good.
Fujino missed it, and he was particularly interested in my my advancement in Linux.
Well, he'll have to get it on download, unfortunately.
Yep.
Hey, I go to JB Titles. Let's all go boat. And then I wanted to share this thread that was in the subreddit with you guys about distro hopping.
Let's go boat.
Everybody go boat. JBTitles.com. Source forgery. That's not bad. Fedora's fabulous fapping fad. No. It's alliterative. I'll give you that.
I know. I can always count on the internet to pick up my
yes, you can. I do like having something with Fedora in there. All right, so here is the distro hopping thread from last feedback. I wanted to put this in here because I feel like he created this account just to give us feedback, because this account's called Last Feedback. It says, in my humble small role, I notice a lot of people hop to various distros. Some consider it good, some consider it a fault of Linux community, fragmentation, etc. Here's my thoughts on why people could be hopping distros. Number one, I think noobs are attracted to Linux, read articles, have opinionated friends, and give them initial thoughts. When this happens, their decisions and opinions are vastly influenced by media FUD, etc. For a noob, there's no difference between Etsy and RD, Upstart, or Systemd. It just requires somebody telling them the sky is falling. I think number two, first and foremost, it's about being comfortable with the base installation, config files, package management, the desktop. Those who attain certain level of power users capability don't need to hop distros. Now, I would branch off this and say one of the reasons I hopped distros early on is I would find one distro had one set of tools I like to do one task, a different distro would have a different set of tools to do another task. He says, not every distro is suitable for everyday users. Distros specialize on certain specific aspects of a workflow. That's kind of what I'm thinking. A given user coming from, say, Windows or Mac may not be accustomed to these workflows. But I really like some of the points that were made in the subreddit thread following. He says, Rob Steady says, I don't think distro hopping is limited to new users. I think it's a different kind of distro hopping for new users than for experienced users. Aha, I completely agree with that one. P4P33R says, we should try to funnel users to specific distros like Ubuntu or Mint for new users.
Or Fedora.
Or Fedora, that's right. Yeah, so it was a good thread.
Or try to figure out what that person is trying to achieve instead of like shoehorning them into Ubuntu or Mint strictly. Say, okay, what are you doing? What do you want to achieve? And see how you can try to understand their needs and point them to the right desktop environment or distro for them instead.
Sunsol, go ahead. You can talk. We're after the show.
Hey, so in terms of like distro hopping, so in my experience with distro hopping, I do it for terms of accessibility. I'm a blind Linux user, so I look to see accessibility as a key factor in how distributions work. So Fedora is one of those accessibilities that I look at, and some other distros like Arch as well.
Yeah, I like that. That makes a lot of sense. I'm going to upvote Fedora's Bright Future. I like that one. Yeah, the accessibility thing could be a big driver. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I'm glad. I know there's been a lot of effort in GNOME for that, so I'm glad that's working for you.
Yeah, I actually do some of the bug reporting and trying to get some of that stuff improved.
Awesome.
Ange learns to tweak. That's not bad. What do you think of that one? Ange learns to tweak.
That's awesome.
Source Forgery is going at the top, but I like it. It's clever, but I feel like we should probably spend more time on Fedora in the title because that's kind of more, it was sort of mentioned throughout the whole episode. I'm liking Fedora's Bright Future by Odyssey Westra.
I like that one.
Yeah, I bet, yeah. Linux Undressed. What? Oh, geez, looks familiar. Evolving Fedora. Trick or Treat Fedora 23. We should save that for when it comes out. That's a good title for when it comes out.
There's spooky
What
goings
did FAD
on.
stand for again?
What's that?
What did FAD stand for again?
Fedora Activity Day.
Fedora Activity Program.
Day. Promotion is what I suggested.
Day is what we're going with there.
Day.
Yeah, it's one of the things that we spend out of our community budget for to bring people together.
Oh, so you pay. It could be Fedora Activity Pay.
I see a focus here. Letter choices.